55.
Cool. Great. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. Jennifer Stafford with CRTPO, and I just wanted to cover our annual call for projects and give you some highlights. For the most part, not too much has changed from last year, so that's the good news, but I still want to cover everything. So again, this is our annual call. This is the time to apply for new projects, shortfall, and planning projects as well. So today I wanted to cover funding information, the website, application information, requirements, our forms, especially Form 1 and 2, planning projects, a little bit about complete streets, and then we'll take some questions and answers. So again, our funding this year is $52.3 million. And as I typically say, if you're applying for engineering work, we'll try to get that funded as soon as possible. I work closely with NCDOT almost every day, and they've been really helpful on basically advancing funds is what they do. So construction would be in the later years, the FY 30-31, when the bulk of our funds are available. So we typically get about $34 million a year. And if you remember last year, we did not program all of the funds that we had available. So some of that is being wrapped over again this year. I still don't have any updates on the congestion management and air quality funds. So we're not programming that this year. I am told that the program will likely continue in some form, so we look forward to those funds next year. Let's hope we hear something about that soon. So one of the changes we made in 2023 was to cap the funding of projects. And please don't confuse that with the funding per town, it's per project. And so the targets you'll see in the middle of the screen, the planning projects target about 1% or 500,000. I'm hearing a lot of talk about applying for planning projects this year. So when the TCC gets together and starts working on the recommendation list that goes to the board, we might see that amount go up just a little bit. But again, these are targets, so we have some flexibility. The highway, we usually take 80% of the available amount. This year, the cap is pretty strong, at least it has been in the past. The TCC, Project Oversight Committee, to the TCC, to the board have held to that cap. So it's not really a target, it's a hard cap. That cap for highway is about 10.37 million. Non-highway, we typically go with 20%, or about 10 million this year. 25% of that is just shy of 2.6 million. As you know, 2.6 million doesn't go too far, so strategize on how you want to do that. You can certainly come for just construction, you can come for right-of-way construction, you can come for all three phases. Your match amount might need to be a little bit higher. The splits typically include shortfalls as well. I have heard lots of discussions about shortfalls coming this year as well. So I don't obviously have any hard numbers or anything like that. I just start hearing questions and that type of thing. So I think it's going to be a pretty competitive call, but I say that every year. So here to make it a little more competitive, here are the average local matches that we've seen over the last few years. And highway really is in that 40%. Like Ted, if I go back a little bit further, it's in the mid 30s, 33, 34-ish range. So you can see those numbers there. And it's one way that you can really change the score outcome is by the match. So much of our scoring criteria is just looking at locations and that type of thing. This is one way you can make a difference in your score. So for our website, starting on Monday when the call opens, and I'll go over the timeline shortly, On our website, we'll have the pre-submittal agendas, the applications, the forms, resources. Right now, the policy, there's a little bit of a timeline on there already, and of course, last year's awards are always posted. You might enjoy looking at last year's awards. It might help you, give you some ideas, especially for planning projects. If you need some budget numbers for planning projects, we prefer that you don't just go to a consultant and get numbers from them, but go ahead and come to me and ask for examples of projects, downtown master plan or something like that. I can maybe give you a range. These projects are all reimbursable. So if you ask for an extra $10,000, it's not the end of the world. We just reimburse you for the actual amounts. That's true for both planning and capital. So in the discretionary grants program guide, which is already on the website, you will see lots of policies, and again, the funding amount, and then the scoring criteria and guides. I would highly recommend opening up those appendix 3 and 4 and looking at those pretty closely. Application requirements, again, this is I think our 6th year of doing the pre-submittal meetings, maybe 7. So you need to make sure you have that done before the deadline, which is October 16th. Again, I'll show you a timeline in a minute. We haven't had anybody miss that pre-submittal deadline, so just remember that it's not going to go away. And then estimates by an engineer or landscape architect, they need to be prepared within 6 months. That can get tricky. A lot of you start doing estimates pretty early on, just to prepare, and we'll be within reason of that 6 months for you. Of course, we'll need the application form 1 and 2, concepts, estimates. There's a checklist in the back of the application, so just follow that. And the application is meant to sort of educate you on the process as you go. So there's links in there and that type of stuff. So I'll make sure you have a complete application. Minimum match, again, just as a reminder, is 20%. 20% is needed for the planning projects. A letter of financial support or resolution. So however your municipality or agency does this, the city of Charlotte, for example, we just get the letter of support by like the CDOT director or assistant city manager. There's some jurisdictions that need it from their board or council, and it's a full resolution. I can say, as you're developing your project list and just as you're talking with your budget folks, if you're getting a little bit shy on when you need to go to your board or council to get that resolution, as long as you're submitting the application in good faith, I'll take that a little bit late. So, we try to accommodate you, but also be very fair. Starting with the awards in 2023, shortfalls. So if you're grandfathered in before 2023, if you have projects already awarded, this might be a little bit more flexible. But if you put in a project since 2023 and you're coming back to apply for a shortfall, it can't exceed the original application amount or $3 million. And I say this every year, but every year it's so important to say, in the older days, we didn't allow for inflation. And as you all know, over the last, it's like James had decade-long project, you've got some substantial increases. So we've had to cap that. We worked closely with the project oversight committee before they sunsetted on these numbers. The pre-submittal meeting, again, required, and we meet with you as well as NCDOT staff. Sometimes I'll invite FHWA if it's a really complex project. Usually it's just me, staff, and NCDOT. So we, at this meeting, will review the project scope and concepts, discuss any challenges you see, especially timelines, or if you're working with a railroad or you have a lot of utilities. We just like to hear what those are, because we'll work with you on scheduling if we need to. This year, we have some complete streets that will be mentioned in the application. So we have a complete streets policy, and I have a slide on this in just a minute, but we want to start tracking which of our funded projects are considered a complete street. So I'll give you more of that in just a minute. We talk about the estimates during this time, answer your questions. Typically 30 minutes, 60 minutes per project. I can say if you're really, if you've sent things to me early and you've got your estimates, and you've gone through, sometimes I even get the pre-submittal agenda that's filled out. Your meeting can be quite short, 15 or 20 minutes. But the norm is more 30 to 60 minutes per project. And feel free to schedule all of your projects at the same time. We'll just add on time for that. So the application layout's still going to look the same as it has in the past. It might start looking a little bit old, but I have to say I get a lot of compliments on the Word layout and the ability just to go in there with the Word and save it and go back and edit it and then submit it as the Word document. The time slots for the pre-submittal meetings for Division 10 and 12 are listed in there. If you really can't make one of those times, I'll reach back out to them and try to get another. But right now, there's holds on everybody's calendars for those pre-submittal meetings. The form and the agenda are at the beginning. So the first 4-6 pages of each application is sort of just about the discretionary grants program and the projects and what we fund, eligibility, funding types, that type of thing. And then the back part is really the application. You can turn in the whole thing or just pull out the application, whatever's easiest for you. Oh, here's the time slots right here. So I tried to do morning, afternoon, and break it up. So you have some different, obviously Division 10's probably got more projects than Division 12, but hopefully you can fit in there. So again, I'll work with you as much as I can. Form 1's pretty much looking the same. I think last year we added the utilities. We need that phased in there. You need to make sure you use the drop down in the top left corner showing what phase you are in. Having said that, think about that, because sometimes you might be in early right away and you're applying for construction only. It might be a little different if you're at the end of right away and you have your design pretty much done. We will work with you on this drop down because it will throw in your contingencies, and we want to make it as real as possible. We prefer that you don't come back for a shortfall, so we don't want to cut it too short. But on the flip side, if it's too high, then we're taken away from potentially other projects being funded. On the far left down below in the table, put your desired years in there. So you saw in the funding table what years we have funded. Go ahead and put your desired in there, and I'll go through this again during the pre-submittal meeting, and then I'll start working with NCDOT on what we can really do. It's to our advantage to start getting you going as soon as possible. Put your estimates in there, your match, fill in all the yellow blanks, and then it'll give you the total requested amount. Shortfall form is number 2. Likewise, make sure you use that drop down on the top left, and then put your, this form is a little bit more complicated. There have been a few times we've had to throw it out. So if you're like, this just isn't working, and I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but every once in a while there's something in there where this form just throws the numbers way too high, and sometimes we just have to do a simple spreadsheet. So know that we are trying to be reasonable on this. We want you to get the requested amount that it's going to take to finish your job or project. So we work with you. We're nearly done. I know it's been a long meeting. The bicycle and pedestrian workbook, I strongly recommend that you use this if you have a bike ped project. So this is lined up with the application and also what I use to score in the database. And so as you go through, make sure you put your funding request amount up top, even if it changes, it's going to calculate the points off that funding request. Then you use the drop down, so your destination of interest, for example, look at your map, where you are, what your distance is, and then you can kind of play around with the workbook to see, do I get more points if it's a bike or pedestrian? And this is your opportunity. The workbook has a slot for 5 different projects to be submitted in there. And you can play around here to find out what your score might be. There's a little bit of scaling that goes on at the end, but for the most part, this is going to be exactly what real close to what your score is going to be. You don't need to turn this in. This is just a workbook to help you out decide which projects might score highest. Now, you might have projects that your council just wants you to go with, and I understand that, but if you have a list of, she's the city of Charlotte, 700 unfunded sidewalk projects all over the city, then this might help you. Also keep in mind the length of these projects being federally funded. You do not want to put a hot project in here, probably, unless you're going to go for construction loan. So the planning projects can be submitted at this time too. We have the Regional Transportation Planning Program that we started a couple years ago. So those pre-submittal meetings will likely be with Travis and Brian on our staff, but you can request the meetings through me and I'll coordinate that. The pre-submittal agenda is also in the planning application. You can walk through that. Again, 20% match. Oh, a lot of people ask me, Form 1 and 2 are not needed for this. And Travis and Brian, and certainly I can always help you to fill this out. It's a lot more writing than our other projects where the others are, capital is different. All right, here's the complete streets. I'm almost done. So again, under the Regional Transportation Planning Program, they developed the Complete Streets policy, which has been adopted by the board. We are trying to track our funded projects, which ones meet the Complete Streets policy. So we're applying these criteria to our projects. We're simply tracking at this point. So we'll discuss this more either in the application, but likely at the pre-submittal meeting, or even after, it could be even after the pre-submittal meeting, but before your application is submitted. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible. If you stop and really think about complete streets, there's a lot that goes in there. So if you're just adding a sidewalk to a highway project, did that just turn it into a complete streets? It probably not, unless you have some other things going on, but it's the checklist on this isn't like, here, hit these 4 things and you've got a complete street. It's much more wishy-washy than that. So not only are we trying to figure out how to track it, but how we later score it. And so staff will do the actual scoring of these projects. But I wanted just to start introducing this to you this year. We also have the applicant presentations. We've been doing them during the transportation staff meeting. They're optional this year. They'll be November 4th and the 18th from 2 to 4. We probably do the bike ped November 4th, and then the highway projects on the 18th. They're 5 minutes per project. You'll be talking fast like I am. 3 slides. We don't usually discuss the funding. There's no points giving for presenting. That doesn't feel very data driven, but you all, these presentations are very well appreciated, and we get a lot of compliments and they help the TCC when they're reviewing the scores, just a mental picture of your project. So I don't see any downside to doing it other than some time. So hopefully you can do that. I send out a notice after I've been through the pre-submittal meetings, know who's going to present. I give you a deck that you can just fill in. And then as you're getting awarded and we do these project updates like James just gave, hopefully you can just update that and off you go. So the timeline, we open August 17th, pre-submittal October 16th, the fall or the annual call closes October 30th, which is a Friday. We've got some TCC workshops in November, December. We'll go through the policy, just look at how we track the scores, kind of do that as a high level in November. It's going to be probably a short meeting. I'll work with the chair, Justin, the vice chair, Justin, on this. And then TCC and board for information and action. And then I work with the STIP unit to get it through their board. So here are the workshops. Hopefully these dates are already on your calendars, but if you're not, reach out. I think I've sent these already. The January one is likely going to be canceled. We've only had to use January meeting like once or twice. So as we go through this process, if we're having lots of discussions, we'll go into January, but let's hope that doesn't happen. So anyway, any questions? That was a lot.
Thanks, Jennifer. No questions in chat that I can see. Any questions for Jennifer in this last couple minutes?
I'm here for you. I'm already getting emails galore on, is this project good and how is it eligible? So keep them coming.